The anime begins with the protagonist reflecting on the meaning of seeing. He was born without the ability to see, and his family has already accepted this reality. Even so, everyone asks him to keep trying and to be proud of himself, because they believe he has the eyes of a hero. Still, the boy continues to question himself, trying to understand why he cannot see like others do. Shortly afterward, Kunon is called by his teacher to begin his lessons. He is taken to the classroom by one of the mansion's maids. Kunon finds sword training somewhat complicated, but the maid comments that with magic he can accomplish impressive things. The boy starts thinking about how far he could go without someone's help, knowing that he cannot move around on his own or perform tasks without support. After some time, Kunon finally arrives at the room where his master is, the one responsible for teaching him how to use magic. During the lesson, the teacher asks what he is already capable of doing. Soon after, using his wand, Kunon casts a water spell, surprising the teacher by already mastering that type of magic. Curious, Kunon asks what size that water magic is. The teacher replies that it is about the size of an eyeball, but upon realizing what she said, she apologizes and promises to make it up to him. Kunon then realizes that he can see magical manifestations, which makes him extremely excited. He also begins to find it strange that he always eats without worrying about what he is consuming, finding everything very curious through touch. When he tastes lettuce, he thinks he is eating some kind of grass, until the maid explains that it is a vegetable called lettuce. Then she says that what covers the bread is butter. When he picks up another fruit, even before she says anything, Kunon recognizes that it is an apple. The maid notices that he has been trying many new things and showing a lot of curiosity. When he smells a strawberry, he notices that its scent is very strong. The maid gets a bit too excited and starts pressing different foods against his cheek so he can guess what they are. Kunon gets slightly annoyed, and she apologizes for getting carried away. Later, Kunon's teacher arrives at the library asking which book he would like to listen to that day. He asks for a work about the history of the Holy Knight of Hungary. The teacher is surprised by the sudden request, but the maid assures her that it is fine. She warns that if the content becomes too heavy, Kunon can ask to stop. The boy shows that he wants to learn many things and is becoming increasingly curious about the world. Then it is explained that long ago, a great war occurred involving heroes from many lands and the demon lord. The hero of that kingdom, Histoa Hunglia, managed to defeat the enemy, but lost an arm and a leg in the battle. After the war, some of that hero's descendants were born missing body parts, such as arms, legs, or even their sight. These children came to be seen as the reincarnation of the hero, bearing what are called the hero's scars. Kunon states that he is just himself and that he uses his own magic, managing to duplicate several spheres of water. To him, mastering magic means being able to see and feel the world. However, whenever he uses magic, he becomes extremely exhausted and ends up fainting. When taking him to his room, the maid asks whether all the affection she gives him is not enough. Kunon replies that it is more than enough and thanks her for always taking care of him. Even so, she comments that if love is not enough, the solution would be for them to sleep together. But Kunon says he does not need that right now. He acknowledges that he still does not have enough knowledge or physical strength to use more advanced magic. The maid believes he needs to eat better. After all, he is only 7 years old and needs to grow strong. Kunon feels that he is lagging behind other children and becomes frustrated for fainting while using basic magic. The maid asks him to take it slowly, respecting the limits of his own body. Kunon comments that he would like to develop muscles, but running or walking is very difficult for him. She then suggests training sword techniques, which excites the boy. Aiko decides to speak with Kunon's father to hire someone qualified. Before leaving, Kunon thanks her for the help. While Aiko gets excited thinking about a possible raise, Kunon only asks that she not make too much noise during his magic training. Aiko is happy and says that if she did not feel his presence, she would be crying that night. The next day, a fencing instructor is hired to train Kunon. During the training, Professor Jenny appears unexpectedly, and the instructor cheerfully comments on how quickly the day passed. Jenny notices that Kunon has started practicing swordsmanship, and he explains that to use magic, one needs knowledge and physical strength. Observing more closely, she realizes that Kunon has changed a lot since the last time she saw him. Before continuing, she asks if he wants to rest. But Kunon prefers to keep training to improve even more. So she decides to review the spell Aori, known as water magic. Kunon casts the spell, and everyone becomes excited when several water spheres appear. The teacher is shocked, as he reached that level almost on his own, even finding it frightening. The scene shifts to Mirika, Kunon's future wife. The maid informs her that the carriage has arrived and that she should go see him. Mirika comments that Kunon has always had an apathetic expression, but the maid reminds her that everything was decided by the royal family. During the journey, Mirika explains that Kunon bears the hero's scars, something important to the kingdom of Huglia, and that the political marriage is a royal duty. When they first met, she wanted to play with him and discover what he liked. But Kunon always seemed distant and sad, saying that he could not do anything on his own. Returning to the present, Mirika feels sad thinking that she would see that dejected face forever. However, upon arriving, she is greeted by Kunon with a smile, which confuses her. She wants to understand what changed, since he seems happier. Kunon explains that he has come to like her, surprising Mirika. When he shows his abilities, creating a rainbow above his head, she is enchanted. Kunon apologizes for having troubled her before, and she also apologizes. He asks her to listen to his stories, as he has experienced fun moments. Mirika falls even more in love upon seeing him so cheerful. On her way home, she feels radiant, considering it a wonderful day and looking forward to seeing him again. The scene returns to Kunon, who is surprised to realize that, for the first time in his life, he reached out his hand to someone. The maid celebrates, saying that this proves he is a true gentleman. The next day, Kunon asks the teacher to read more about chivalry, as he wishes to be worthy of Mirika. The final scene shows the teacher, aware that all of this is something impossible for her. She realizes that she can no longer maintain 7 water spheres at the same time, and soon understands that Kunon has evolved far too quickly. In a short time, there was little more she could teach him at that level, so she decides to move on to intermediate magic. Her initial plan had been to teach only basic magic to a child, something she had always wanted, since it required less effort and offered a good salary. Although useful, magic is never completely safe, and Kunon is still very young to deal with advanced techniques. Even so, the girl understands that it is too early to give up and decides to continue the job. After all, she also needs to support herself. The next day, she decides to teach Kunon how to put feelings into water. To demonstrate, she creates one icy sphere and another hot one, showing how this gives originality to the spell. To her, this ability defines a mage's individuality, and can even be seen as a clear difference in talent. Next, Kunon decides to try. He uses his magic and asks Aiko to taste it. When she does, she realizes it is plum juice. The teacher is shocked, because he accomplished in seconds something she had spent the entire night studying. She asks if it was difficult, and Kunon replies that it was not. At nightfall, he decides to test it with 2 apples, trying to better understand aroma. However, he encounters difficulties, since he cannot see colors. Without understanding them, he cannot cause magical changes or create eyes. Even so, he decides to continue, because he wants to see everything that exists in the world. At dawn, Kunon goes downstairs for breakfast and realizes that he can see colors using magic. Aiko is surprised, but he believes he still cannot see properly. The girl becomes irritated, so Kunon explains better. He sees colors through magic. He picks up a green apple and says it is red. Aiko realizes that, to him, colors are different, and that he still does not know their names. Kunon agrees, saying it is the first time he has ever seen these tones. Aiko then explains that the apple is light green. Kunon becomes even more confused, realizing that feeling something may be even harder to learn. Aiko asks how many apples are on the plate, and Kunon answers that there are 5, 3 red and 2 green. Aiko is fascinated by the boy's progress, and can hardly wait to see what will come next. When she tells Kunon's father about this discovery, he is surprised to learn that his son can now distinguish colors. Aiko explains that the range of this effect is limited, but enough to differentiate shades, becoming clearer the closer he is, especially through touch. The father asks if Kunon can read, and Aiko replies that he can, since he identifies the color of the ink by running his finger over the letters. He still needs to learn reading itself, but he is already enchanted by books and illustrated guides. The man asks whether the boy would not like to return to the main house, as he did not want people to worry about him. Aiko thinks it is better not to, because Kunon is discovering many new things, and that could interfere with his goals. The next day, Kunon manages to create a red water sphere, but his family suddenly appears, and he drops the sphere on the ground. The liquid covers him in red, and his mother faints upon seeing the scene. The teacher observes everything and realizes that Kunon possesses an absurd amount of magic. She does not know how far he can go, but she believes he may reach the greatest title in the magical world, the Blue Mage. The scene shifts to the father talking with Kunon's brother, considering taking him to a noble school. He explains that Kunon has rarely left the mansion since birth and may be frightened by the world and unfamiliar people. Therefore, he asks the older son to take care of his brother. The boy remembers that before he could not protect him and feels afraid, but promises that this time he will do everything he can to help. He decides that, no matter the cost, he will be a true older brother. The scene returns to Kunon, who can now read several books, making everyone happy with his progress. The teacher arrives shortly after and notices the cheerful atmosphere. After teaching Kunon about knightly behavior, she remembers that Aiko also wanted him to have a sense of humor and wonders whether it was working. An elegant and amusing man suits Kunon, even if he seems a bit strange. Even so, she acknowledges that he is much better than before and far more adorable. At nightfall, Aiko decides to take him to meet his father. Before that, she asks Kunon to warm her a little with magic, and she feels better. Kunon asks if he did something wrong to be scolded, but Aiko says no, reminding him that he had already been warned when he created the blood sphere. Upon arriving at the main house, the butler welcomes them, and soon Kunon's brother appears to greet them. As they head to their father's room, the brother asks if Kunon needs help, but he replies that he does not, since he can feel everything around him. The brother becomes excited upon realizing how strong Kunon is becoming thanks to magic. In the presence of their parents, the father decides to speak seriously. He asks whether Kunon still does not wish to attend school. Kunon replies that he does not, because he thinks he would bother people and prefers to prioritize other things at the moment. The father says he wants his son to do what he thinks is best. Kunon asks if there will be any problem if he does not go. The father explains that all nobles are required to attend school, and that, technically, Kunon also belongs to an aristocratic school. Kunon asks if that is not enough, and the father explains that, due to the circumstances, the king granted special permission for him not to attend. Even so, he asks Kunon to think it over. The boy then asks only how he should spend his allowance. The father shows concern about Mirka and asks Kunon to take this more seriously. Nobles who do not fulfill their duties end up at a social disadvantage, and this could harm Princess Mirka's future. Faced with this, Kunon decides to go to the academy. At first, he finds it all a nuisance. The father explains that he does not need to study for years, only take the promotion exam. There are 5 tests, so it is enough to go 5 times to obtain the official diploma. The brother comments that he and Princess Mirka will graduate in the next exam and will end up together. If that is the decision, the mother will take care of the preparations. Before leaving, the father reminds him that other members of the royal family study there, and Kunon may end up meeting Mirka. The brother assures him that everything will be fine. The scene shifts to Kunon talking with Mirka, telling her that he will go to the academy for 5 days to take the exam. Mirka is very happy to be able to spend this time with her future husband. Kunon does not fully understand how school works, but he promises to do his best. He feels a bit uneasy, thinking that other people might be jealous of the princess. He soon senses a certain tension and wonders whether Mirka lacks popularity. Kunon considers buying a wand for self-defense. As he boards the carriage, he casts a spell to prevent it from shaking, since his father had commented that this caused back pain. The brother asks if Kunon is afraid of going to a distant place, but he replies that he is not, because he is much stronger now. Even so, he knows that he caused concern when he fell and got hurt in the past. For a long time, he carried the guilt for all of this within himself. Kunon then explains that everything is fine now. Before, he felt a constant desire to simply disappear. But that feeling is in the past. In the present, he is determined to live, no matter what happens. His brother clearly notices how much Kunon has changed. The boy states that even if all the humans in the world were to disappear, he would still intend to keep living, because he carries a strong desire to survive. Upon arriving at the academy, Kunon is welcomed by his beloved wife. Before entering completely, he lags behind a little and begins to feel the presence of many people around him, as well as hearing countless voices. He knows that if he were the Kunon of the past, he would probably have hesitated to take this step and enter the school. The scene then shifts to the teacher responsible for accompanying him. She remembers when she first met him, when he was still very young, and wonders whether she will be able to guide him properly during those 5 days. As she observes him closely, she realizes that Kunon has matured a great deal and is even walking ahead of her. Even so, she calls out to him and officially introduces herself as the school's teacher and the tutor who will be accompanying him. While they talk, some students appear, commenting among themselves about Kunon, saying that he is the only one to have received that blessing in 100 years. One of the boys shows irritation, while his friends think Kunon is nothing special. However, the jealousy truly surfaces when he sees Mirika at Kunon's side. Upon entering the classroom, the teacher asks whether Kunon already knows how the exam works. He replies that it consists of 5 days of tests. She confirms this, explaining that each test has a specific time limit. After completing the exams, Kunon manages to get everything right, leaving the teacher very satisfied. The scene shifts to Kunon walking through the school corridors until a boy appears and starts provoking him, saying that he does not believe Kunon really received his father's blessing. This boy is Lyle, Mirika's brother. Realizing that the situation could turn into a mess, Kunon decides to settle it once and for all. He uses the water around them to create the illusion that the prince has gotten wet, making it look as though he has urinated on his own clothes. People begin to laugh, and Lyle runs away in embarrassment. Kunon's brother panics at the scene, but Kunon is thinking of only one thing: eating a hamburger. The episode ends with Mirika's brother consumed by anger toward Kunon. And that brings the second episode to a close. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. I'll see you next Sunday with more of this anime. Bye. However, soon we see Lael walking through the corridors, consumed by fury, as if she were planning revenge. Later, Kunon asks Mirika about what happened in the dining hall and why Prince Lael placed himself in his path, clearly showing his violent nature. Mirika replies that he came only to pressure him, reminding him that her brother is the 6th prince, while she is only the 9th princess. Because of that, her position in the royal hierarchy is lower. However, her fiancé bears the scar of the hero, being a highly prestigious mage, which quickly elevated her status. Now that Kunon has shown his true worth, he will stand above high society. Despite everything, Mirika says she is happy to be his fiancé, and Kunon comments that when he meets the king, he intends to kneel as a sign of gratitude. After that, he says that he would like to apologize to Lyle, but neither he nor Mirika allow it. Soon after, they head off to meet the teacher. They are informed that this would be Kunon's final test, in which he would need to learn how to modify the texture of water. Kunon turns the water into ice, but the shape resembles an apple. Jane then suggests that he touch different objects to reproduce their textures, something that will be seen later. At another moment, Kunon is playing horse, which Ino finds strange. At that instant, Mirika appears, and Kunon comments that he barely feels the passage of time. He says that on the last day, when he hears the teacher's voice, he feels as if the world fills with a deep sadness. Mirika responds in an exaggerated way, saying that he will not leave until sunset, which drives the sadness away in seconds. After that, the three move on together. Kunon is excited for the final exam, because all of that makes him feel as if he were in a real school. Although it is also sad to know that he will not continue there with his teacher. She says that she will be watching and wishes him good luck. It is clear that there is a great deal of trust between Kunon and the teacher, something built throughout the examinations. The teacher comments that she became an instructor to follow in the footsteps of a man she admired, with whom she studied at a school for nobles. However, that man did not pass the final exam, and she ended up alone. The other two do not fully understand how a teacher can share her life story with a student. Meanwhile, another student talks to Mirika, asking her to introduce him to Kunon. With all the posture of a knight, Kunon introduces himself as the fiancé of Princess Mirika Uglia and the younger brother of Ixia. This relieves him because he discovers that his sister and his fiancé had friends, since no one usually spoke to them. Mirika explains that if she seemed distant, it was only to spend more time with Kunon, asking her friends for a bit of understanding. Kunon thanks the princess for her consideration, but admits that he had been worried, even though he never directly asked whether they were lonely at school. He is happy to know that his sister was not alone and that the princess had friends, otherwise he would have tried to comfort them, saying that there is no problem in not having friends. This confusion leaves everyone speechless, but Mirika understands what he meant. Kunon confirms it, stating that humans can live well on their own, which sounds intriguing to everyone. Already in the classroom, Lyle is informed that the time for the exam has arrived. He orders everyone to wait for her, but his subordinates doubt that, even though he is a prince, the teacher would decide to wait. After all, it is an official examination. The bell rings, marking the beginning. The students sit in their seats. Our protagonist was about to be guided by Mirika when Lyle appears and separates them. People begin to murmur, and Lyle notices this, remembering what the maid said at the castle. He becomes furious, since no one had ever dared to challenge him in that way. Suddenly, Kunon grabs his hand and introduces himself. Surprising everyone, Lyle demands that he let go, but Kunon holds on firmly, comparing himself to a biting turtle, and says that he is his brother-in-law, so the proper thing would be to get to know each other better. Thus, they enter a verbal confrontation, making it clear that he did not give him permission to touch him. Kunon points out Lyle's masculine bearing and states that, if he could see, he would be so impressed that he would smile when he lifted his chin. This makes Lyle blush, drawing laughter from everyone. Embarrassed, the blonde asks Kunon to let go. He obeys, and the matter ends there. During the exam, the prince shows good performance, albeit a bit reflective. In the end, after the evaluation, the teacher announces that everyone has passed. With that, Kunon returns home, says goodbye to his classmates, and even to the teacher, to whom he extends his hand to his brother. Lyle watches the scene smiling and comments something with his colleagues before leaving. Back at the place, Jane asks Kunon to practice magic by creating a whirlwind. He begins by forming a sphere of water and making it spin. Next, they ask him to stop the movement and divide the sphere into 10 parts, which Kunon manages with effort. Then, they request that he change the colors to red, green, and yellow, as well as alter the texture, something he accomplishes without difficulty. Jane congratulates him, saying it was magnificent. Before stopping, Kunon asks for one more moment, explaining that he made an extra modification, adding shape and temperature to the texture. Thus, we see the water gain solid form and shoot away. Jane is startled and falls to the ground, saying that it was too much. After some time, the two appear having tea. Jane says that she wants to talk about something important. Kunon thinks it must be the graduation celebration dinner and says that she is also invited. However, Jane says it is not about that, although graduation is a good moment to tell the truth, asking whether he is mentally prepared, because what she will say is extremely shocking. Kunon shows concern, takes a sip of tea, and before continuing, asks Aiko to leave. As he goes out, he clenches his fist, feeling that it is too much. Suddenly, Kunon imagines that Jane is a goddess of the night sky, about to depart and return to her own world. Jane likes him. This is Kunon's story, but it is not limited to just that. The truth is that, for her, there is nothing left except to continue teaching. She confesses that, for some time now, she has felt that she has nothing new left to pass on. Everything she knew about elemental magic, especially the kind that was not focused on attack, had already been taught. Now, Kunon can handle magic better than she herself can. Jane believes that she would only need to learn some kind of unprecedented magic in order to surpass him again. Hearing this, Kunon stands up and says that this is not true. He admits that he always liked her tricks, the creative ways she used to make the content understandable and interesting. Even so, when she tried to teach him using only pure magic, Jane had already realized that Kunon had noticed her desperation, which, in a way, made her feel more at ease. Kunon then says that his own magic expanded precisely thanks to her tricks. He remembers when they talked about Aori, comparing the sphere she had created, and how that opened his eyes. Jane gave Kunon a purpose in life, something that involved much more than simply casting spells. The tricks taught him about the depth of magic. Because of that, Jane asks whether he should not stop repeating these techniques. She comments that she made a great effort to invent something new, trying to deceive him, but nothing seemed to work. Kunon refuses to believe that she was really being deceptive. He asks whether she intends to leave because of the salary, saying that he can ask his father to pay more. However, Jane makes it clear that this is not it. She cannot stand receiving so much money when she feels that she no longer has anything to teach. Before, she managed to keep going, but now she can no longer continue in the same way. Standing in front of him, Jane says that Kunon should learn from a wizard better than her, someone who could still help him evolve. She admits that she managed to deceive him up to that point, but she cannot continue like this. For Kunon, even if they were tricks, the fact that she was able to think of so many for such a long time already showed incredible talent. He says that he would like her to continue being his teacher, even if she were an elegant deceiver. Kunon does not want anyone else in that role. While she was saying this, some aquatic animals began to approach, making it clear that Jane truly could no longer continue as his teacher. Kunon's magic had already gone far beyond hers. Finally, we see Jane leaving. For her, there is no doubt that Kunon is a genius and that he can reach the title of Blue Mage. Even she, being considered a genius, had to work very hard, surpassing her own limits repeatedly in order to evolve. She states that she cannot afford to lose to her student because it is still far too early for that. The days pass, and Kunon discovers that Professor Flora also resigned. She congratulates him, saying that he has already completed the entire curriculum. Kunon laments not having been able to say goodbye, but Aiko explains that Flora did not want to, because she might end up crying. Faced with this, Kunon decides to write a letter of thanks. Aiko supports the idea and even asks him to find out whether, at the mansion, there is any employee between 18 and 25 years old, well-paid, tall, and handsome. Hearing this, Kunon becomes dejected. He asks whether she might leave when he gets married. Aiko apologizes, but confirms that yes, she will. She says that now they can already live on their own without problems, so it will not be necessary. This makes Kunon even sadder, and he says that he will not be able to deal with it. He tells the story of a rabbit that died when it felt lonely. Irritated, he exclaims that he will not ask Flora for anything else. During a family dinner, Kunon says that Flora recommended that he look for a talented wizard to train him. Ino comments on rumors about the existence of a powerful royal wizard at the school, named Zio, also known as Sionli Fin Royal, famous for his appearance and for possessing an absurd amount of mana. Kunon's father reacts firmly, explaining that a royal wizard holds an official position in the castle, answers directly to the king, and cannot receive orders from anyone outside the royalty. In addition, these wizards rarely leave the castle, and access to them is extremely restricted. Even understanding the difficulty, Kunon imagines an unlikely plan to reach the castle and encounter a wizard by chance, an idea that his father immediately rejects. Kunon then turns to his mother, who ends up agreeing and asks her husband to at least present the proposal to the king. To end the discussion, the father agrees to present the situation to His Majesty. In the royal castle, an albino woman analyzes documents related to an unusual case. A child apprentice wizard requesting direct training from a royal wizard. She comments that power and status do not impress wizards of that level, but mentions that her younger sister, Mirika, was enchanted by Kunon. Upon reading the documents more carefully, the man is surprised by the boy's name, showing great interest in the protagonist's potential.